Hey, it's Dan, welcome back. You guys have asked for it, and I've got a good one for you today because I've got Jack, the CEO of Patriot Gold, back. And thank you, sir, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, but first thing is, one thing that I'm very lucky for is I have a lot of great people on speed dial, and one thing that I can do is ask Jack questions. And there was a great headline that was how to prepare for a recession. You get your finances in order for a recession. And I thought that was such a great topic, and we should talk about that today. Then I've got you, and I've got a ton of questions for you and stuff to ask you. But thank you for being here, sir.
Well, thank you for having me. And I also want to thank Dan for having this YouTube channel, because mainstream media, even conservative media right now, all they're reporting on is the election. It's the election, the election, the election. Meanwhile, there's so much going on right now, like Saudi Arabia ending the petrodollar, Russia no longer doing trade in US dollars. Also this agreement between Kim Jong-un and Putin regarding a strategic alliance. But as far as preparing for a recession, see, everyone was anticipating 4 or 5 rate cuts in 2024. And I do believe that the Fed is preparing for a July surprise, believe it or not. And you have to know how to read between the lines. And if you look at Q1 GDP coming in at 1.6%, well below the 2.4% that was forecasted. If you look at consumer confidence right now is at a 6-month low. Jobless claims just came in at a 10-month low, or a 10-month high, I'm sorry, a 10-month high.
10-month
Consumer confidence, a 6-month low. Jobless claims, a 10-month high. And then if you look at the consumer price index and the producer price index numbers that were released last week, they're doing everything they can to support a July rate cut. And why? Because the Fed do not want to appear politically motivated and do the first rate cut in September. But with having forecasted 4 or 5 rate cuts, what's happening here now is the longer they keep pushing these rate cuts out, the more our economy is spiraling into a recession. I believe we're in a recession right now.
I totally believe so. Goldman Sachs, their head analyst, Jan Hatzius, he said that GDP, he just downgraded GDP by half a point, from 3.2 to 2.7 is what he's anticipating
Q2
for Q2.
For Q2,
and that's a big deal because people are spending less money right now, and again goes to the preparation. You've got to batten down the hatches. You've got to prepare yourself for what's coming. And again, you clearly sell gold, but I just think that this is the time to get into gold and silver like we've never seen before.
Yeah, well, JP Morgan just warned that stocks are going to hit a wall this summer because of these lofty valuations. I mean, you see that NVIDIA just overtook Microsoft as the largest market cap, but NVIDIA's business is reliant on Microsoft. So this whole AI is so similar to the dot-com bubble back in 2000. And as far as what you were saying regarding the consumer spending and a recession, I mean, we know inflation is still rampant. If you look at the cost of airfare, you look at the cost of hotels, you look at the cost of dining out, eating at restaurants, grocery shopping. I mean, it is. I went to my daughter this weekend. We went to a farmer's market. My daughter wanted to go to the farmer's market. She spent $3 on a single orange.
Isn't that crazy?
A single orange. I said, wait, it was $3 a pound. She picked one orange, and it was $3 for an orange. And I said to her, I go, how was that orange? It better have been the best orange you've ever had.
Absolutely.
I mean, the prices right now, the costs, inflation. I mean, these are kitchen table issues. This is the real deal. This is what's going on. It is so expensive.
My son, as a college student, came to town for Father's Day and to see his friend's graduation. And he had the exact same experience because he loves when I make tacos in the house. And last time he was here, it was $22 for tacos, and it was $40 this time. For the same ingredients, the same thing, Dad, the same stuff you always cook. This was $39.68. Look at this. So, who can afford that? This is affecting us. We're not supposed to believe that that this is having a terrible toll on families. They're saying that it costs the average family $1,049 a month just to survive. And think about it. Give me an extra $1,049. Nobody can afford this. And that's nothing extra. That's not traveling. And then you throw, health insurance, cars, everything into it, and the insurance problem that everybody has right now. It's a
the
mess.
auto insurance. I
Right.
mean, auto insurance is up, I think, something like 40%. I mean, they're trying to say it's about 22%, but we're
It's
looking
ridiculous.
at more like 40%. It's the cost of living right now between the homeowners insurance, auto insurance, when you look at groceries, dining out, travel, when you look at hotels, it is, I mean, the costs have absolutely skyrocketed.
So that's nuts, guys. But when you think about business in general, and I really think that companies have to prepare themselves for what's coming and understand they've got to work from within. You've got to sell more to your existing customer base. You've got to work to try to get more for your clients and not waste any money right now. That's really a key.
I have noticed that right now people are keeping money close to their vest. We are seeing a huge demand for physical gold and silver right now, especially silver. Silver just joined the party. Silver's over $30 an ounce.
Wow. It went up another $1.20 yesterday too. It was crazy.
It had been in a trading range for a number of years, and they said that once silver broke that $30 an ounce, support level, which it's done, and it's now held above $30 an ounce. And that's because of when you look at half the demand for silver being tied into its industrial and utilitarian applications, when you look at the infrastructure bill, when you look at this accelerated push into renewable green energy, certainly with this administration, of course, when you look at the amount of silver in every solar panel, when you look at China right now and the amount of silver that they're using, silver right now, we're running into a 215 million ounce supply deficit on silver.
Absolutely.
Right now, every year.
The supply deficit, but then when you also think about the short positions that these people have for physical metals that they don't have is crazy right now. So you're going to see real problems. And I was listening to a radio show driving to your house, and they were talking about silver could easily hit $100 an ounce at some point within the next year. So,
Well, and also a lot of that not only has to do with the industrial and utilitarian applications, but with what's happening to the US dollar. Now, Donald Trump said the US dollar is crashing and will no longer be the reserve currency, which will be our greatest defeat in 200 years. And this is what mainstream media and even conservative media is not reporting right now. And I think it's really important to talk about this. We really need to talk about BRICS, which is the basket-based currency comprised of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, because Saudi Arabia joined BRICS. And now it was announced just this week, and it's huge news. I cannot believe that it's not everywhere, that Saudi Arabia has ended their agreement for the petrodollar, which has been in agreement since 1973. When Nixon took us off the gold standard, we agreed to defend Saudi Arabia, and in return for our defense of Saudi Arabia, they priced crude oil in US dollars. Well, now, for the first time now in 50 years, they're no longer pricing crude oil in US dollars. And you have to understand how big that is. No longer, that is what cemented the US dollar as the dominant reserve currency, 100%. And it's no longer the petrodollar. And Saudi Arabia has said that it is open to pricing crude oil in yuan, in yuan. And then, because of this administration and the G7 summit, where they said they were going to take Russia's frozen assets and start rebuilding Ukraine and doling out those frozen assets to Ukraine, Russia, just last week on Thursday, it was a surprise announcement.
I'm sure they're furious over this, because think about this: that money. Oh, we're going to give it to their money to you. I mean,
to
oh
Ukraine.
My God.
So that's why then Russia on Thursday, surprise announcement, is no longer doing currency trades using the US dollar. No longer doing any currency trades using the US dollar, and has replaced it with the yuan. So there you have Saudi Arabia agreeing or being open to now pricing crude oil in yuan. Russia now doing currency trades with it in the yuan instead of the US dollar. And then you have Vladimir Putin, for the first time in 25 years, going over to North Korea and meeting with Kim Jong-un, who has agreed to provide weaponry and defense in supporting the war against Ukraine. And now Russia is offering North Korea and Kim Jong-un nuclear warheads.
Yeah, and
so
Kim
how is this
Jong-un
not
gave
being
him
reported?
Dogs, gave Putin dogs too.
Two dogs.
So,
Yeah, 2 dogs. But how is this not being reported? How could people? So the reason that gold has been at all-time highs here in 2024, and if you remember, before 2024, we said when gold surpasses $2,000 an ounce, it's never looking back, and you're never
Absolutely.
going to buy gold again below $2,000 an ounce. And gold went as high as $2,425 an ounce, and the reason being, sole reason being, because keep in mind, we had 11 consecutive rate hikes, the most aggressive rate hike cycle in history.
22 years.
In history.
And the interest rates are higher than they've been in 22 years.
22-year highs.
But
it was because of central bank gold demand.
Absolutely.
From Russia, Turkey, Poland, China. They have an insatiable appetite right now for physical gold because they're dumping U.S. treasuries and they're dumping the U.S. dollar. They're moving out of dollar-denominated assets and moving away from the U.S. dollar and into physical gold. And Russia and Saudi Arabia are moving into the yuan. So there's also been rumors, not rumors, I mean, it's speculated and it's been discussed, and Vladimir Putin said that BRICS would be backed by a basket of commodities, one of those being gold. So that supports why China and Russia have had this insatiable appetite for physical gold.
Yeah, central banks, individual countries. I mean, the buying is absolutely insane right now when you see that.
Well, the World Gold Council and Wells Fargo just said this week, the head of commodities over at Wells Fargo, John LaForge, said we are in the very early stages of a commodity supercycle. And the World Gold Council said that central bank gold demand is just getting started.
Yeah, I have one expert that
started.
comes on the show too, and he says that there is no sky right now when it comes to metals, and that when it takes off, Dan, the lid is off. It's going to just go to the sky. So again, if you guys, Patriot Gold Group, #1 rated for their fantastic customer service, call them today at 888-330-1431, and they have the IRA that's free for life.
The no fee for life IRA on qualifying rollovers. Because let's ask ourselves, you have JP Morgan saying that stocks are to hit a wall this summer. We're already in a recession. Now keep in mind, I am not a certified financial investment advisor, nor do I give tax advice. But you have JP Morgan saying stocks are going to hit a wall this summer. You have the World Gold Council, Wells Fargo. You also have Goldman Sachs, UBS revising their gold forecast to $2,700 an ounce by year's end.
Yes.
$2,700 an ounce by year's end. You have Citigroup and Wells forecasting $3,000 an ounce gold in 2025.
And the one thing I'm excited
about, and silver,
about,
like we talked about.
One thing I'm excited about is I've seen estimates as high as $4,000 an ounce.
I've seen higher.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Thomas Kaplan, $5,500 an ounce. Jeffries, $5,000 an ounce. And there's also another bit of news to discuss, which on May 30th, it was called the end of the Fed Day. Did you hear about that with the Federal Reserve and state banks?
Yes.
Now state banks being able to use gold and silver as currency, and the Fed no longer intervening in state banks. They called it the end of the Fed Day, and it said it could propel gold. And now keep in mind, this is lofty, and I'm not standing by this forecast, but it could propel gold to $25,000 and silver to over $400.
Now, the crazy...
That was on May 30th.
Yeah, the other thing is that Japan just had a bank that dumped a ton of our treasury bills. And I mean, it's crazy, guys. When you think about this and you think of the billions of dollars that they unloaded overnight, I mean, because they needed money, what's going to happen? If we have one of these bank runs that takes off,
well, there was a report last week, Banking Crises 2.0, because we had the regional banking crises back in 2023. Now, Jerome Powell, they intervened with their, bank rescue plan, which, by the way, they rescued Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, First Republic Bank more money was injected than was injected back in '08 during the
And
subprime
people don't
mortgage
realize
crisis.
that. People think that because it wasn't a big deal and because their finances weren't directly affected, this was bigger, guys. It was absolutely huge. There's that, and also, I mean, you haven't seen anything yet when it comes to these banks, and the number of banks that are having trouble right now. The FDIC does not have enough money to protect us, and people think that they're just going to write checks. They're going to do bank bail-ins, where they're going to give you shares of stock in these banks when they do decide to do, the banking crisis 2.0.
When that happens again, when the regional banking crisis hits, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Also, the exposure to commercial real estate loans. It was reported 2 weeks ago that Donald J. Trump's signature property, his most valuable asset, is 40 Wall Street.
Yes.
And that loan is due in July. And it has a 22% vacancy rate right now.
Which is the highest it's ever been.
Highest it's ever been, 22% vacancy rate.
But see, to have a 78% vacant occupancy rate in some of these areas is stellar. It's insane, but I'm telling you, taking that to a bank, it's going to be difficult for people, because there was a building that we talked about in the channel last week that sold for 38% of its value, and it had 22%. They were bragging about a 22% occupancy rate. And here, this is a nice area of Los Angeles, and there are, within a mile or two of here, you've got a ton of vacant buildings right now.
Well, yesterday was my daughter's birthday, 17th birthday.
Yeah.
And she wanted to go to dinner last night at a restaurant that's in downtown LA on a rooftop. And there's that building downtown. It must be at least a $200 million building that's vacant with all the graffiti on it. Have you seen that?
It's
all
amazing.
the graffiti. But downtown is, I'm telling you, downtown Los Angeles, and we can get into Democrat-run cities. I mean, it literally looks like Beirut.
That's a war zone.
It is a war zone. The homeless encampments, the empty office buildings. I mean, it is frightening.
Yeah,
what's
absolutely.
going on downtown LA.
Absolutely. You have to plan when you travel to these areas to where you're going to park the car, the security, how you're going to handle, where in proximity to the restaurant, to your vehicle, because you don't know what you're going to get yourself into.
My wife did not want to valet park the car because apparently there's something going on, and this is a good PSA announcement for your viewers, that when you valet park the car, they're taking the registration out of the glove box, and the valets are notifying burglars, and they're burglarizing homes. So my wife didn't want to valet park the car last night, and there was a parking garage next door. I said, sweetheart, there's no chance that I'm parking my car in the parking garage in this city. We are valet. So she took the registration out of the glove box, put it in her handbag, and we valet parked the car.
Wow.
Like, we weren't even comfortable parking our car in a parking garage.
Think about this. And I know where you took her too. So it's such a nice restaurant, such a nice area. But this is what hell, the beginning of it, looks like. And you look at cities like San Francisco, New York. Here's the thing. When I went to New York in February, it's different. The vibe is different. The crowd is different. Everything is different, and you are taking your life into your own hands.
I have a good friend of mine, one of my closest friends. He has an apartment on Fifth Avenue in New York. Last week, he called me. He said, I'm contacting a realtor. I'm renting it out. He goes, I'm just not comfortable being in New York anymore. It's right by NYU, by Washington Square Park. He said, I am not comfortable being in New York anymore. He said, there's hypodermic needles, it's
crazy.
The drugs, the homelessness,
insanity.
And then the number of illegals
Yeah.
that have just like literally occupied the city.
And they're getting better hotel rooms than some people can afford and save in their vacation.
Yeah.
It's insane. I covered this story yesterday. There's a family that their son was an athlete, got a scholarship. They flew out to Oakland to go tour the college. And while they were having lunch, the rental car was completely destroyed. All the windows were shattered. They took everything out of the car, their passport, all their money, everything. And they said the last thing that's going to happen is my kid staying here in California.
Yeah.
So,
Or New York. So my 17-year-old daughter was looking at schools in New York. And I mean, we could even go on about, how about those protests at Columbia like 2 months ago?
Yeah,
and
it's crazy.
Insane.
Yeah.
Insane. So my daughter was saying, how she wanted to go to school in New York. I said, sweetheart, there's not a chance you're going to school in New York. You see these people being punched in the face,
Yeah,
the assaults going on.
Your daughter's a very good student, so she could pretty much go anywhere.
Yeah,
but yeah.
And it's not going to be New York City. Absolutely not. And how disappointing, though, is that?
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible.
We're talking about, these cities, what's happened to Los Angeles, what's happened to New York, what's happened to Chicago, what's happened to D.C. That's where our capital is. It's where the White House is. They are just absolutely they're war zones.
Chaos. It's absolute chaos. And, it's awful. And as we look at this, and you can just sit there and say, it's these cities, but it's the problem with cancers like that is it spreads.
It does.
And it gets worse and they inflict other areas. And the one thing I always tell people is batten down the hatches right now. Don't spend needlessly on junk, and make sure you're protecting your retirement and your future, and pay attention to this stuff, because a lot is going on that's kind of being diverted over here that they don't want us to look at. And we have to be ready for this, and to get ready for this recession. I have believed that we've been in this for a while, and I believe that people and families need to get themselves ready for what's coming.
Well, one of the, and I wanted to do this with our company, with Patriot Gold Group, was I wanted to run a commercial about the necessity in purchasing physical gold and silver. And I said, I'll give you 74 million reasons why. Because we have this election coming up in November. Now, in 2020, Trump had 74 million votes and somehow lost the election. So, while we're talking about Democrat-run cities that are just war zones, and then we're talking about Saudi Arabia ending the petrodollar. We're talking about Russia no longer using the US dollar and replacing it with the yuan. We're talking about Russia and North Korea now forming a strategic alliance. Why is all of this happening? Because of how weak this administration is.
Yeah, these guys are having a slumber party right now.
And they see how vulnerable the United States is. The United States is so vulnerable right now. And these, let's be honest, these large metropolises, these cities, New York, LA, war zones, what happens if in November we see a Biden re-election? Because let me tell you, in 2020,
oh my God, we would be a third world country at that point.
A third world country, because they will literally just go full blown with their, social welfare agenda, with their, diversity, equanimity, and inclusion, with trans athletes.
Hey guys, let's play a game.
Yeah.
What do you think? How do you think Jack's going to vote?
I'm
kidding.
But no, it's so concerning to me. It's worrisome. People should be scared. People should be concerned.
Because,
not to mention our vulnerability of cyber attacks right now.
Oh, it happens every day.
The vulnerability of a cyber attack right now.
I report
on the banking
cyber attacks,
system.
Basically, like I say, it's a day with a Y. There's a new cyber attack or ransomware attack.
Yes.
And it is just daily. And it's like,
yes.
The most recent one was CDK, the car software for General Motors. Couldn't sell cars, couldn't write service orders, couldn't do anything within
I've
the
gotten
company.
2 notices in the past year. My accountant and I believe it was AT&T that both had data breaches.
Yes.
And so they had data breaches where all my information was exposed. Now, we talk about the regional banking crises, we talk about the banking crisis 2.0. Some say that's by design to roll out central bank digital currencies. So could some of these cyber attacks. So what we're talking about with owning physical gold and silver is that opportunity to own something tangible, to pull it out of the financial system, to protect the purchasing power of the dollar that's being destroyed as Saudi Arabia ends the petrodollar agreement. Russia no longer uses the US dollar. And, again, there's 74 million reasons why. 74 million reasons why you should buy physical gold and silver. I can't emphasize that enough, because we're heading towards November. It'll be here before you know it. And
absolutely, guys, absolutely. And so, okay, let's close this out. Please call Patriot Gold Group, 888-330-1431. Get a free investor guide. They will answer all your questions. Their customer service is absolutely stellar. They've been #1 for a very good reason.
8 years in a row.
8 years in a row.
Consumer
now
Affairs.
I can say 8 years in a row with Consumer Affairs. So 8 years, guys.
Over 1,000 5-star reviews. Over 1,000 5-star reviews. A+ rated on the Better Business Bureau. The only company nationwide where you, the client, and especially viewers of Dan, you work directly with the owners.
Yeah,
you work
it's
directly
fantastic.
with myself.
It really is great. And but again, guys, you know, Jack does something that Bob does, and that is if you want questions answered, email us, hello@iallegedly.com, and we'll answer those questions. Please don't forget to hit the like button. Please don't forget to subscribe. Check out Patriot Gold. Thank you so much. I always appreciate you being here and answering questions. And I just think that it's going to be a tumultuous summer like we've never seen in our lifetime. And you know, this is gonna be very, very interesting, and it changes on a daily basis.
Well, may I mention one more thing?
Sure.
Gold is protection in times of uncertainty. Are we in a time of uncertainty right now? I mean,
The most uncertain time.
Are we in a time of uncertainty? When you hear of all these things that are going on, it's not like a black swan event. It's like a flock of black swans. and I mean, here's your opportunity, because you don't want to look back and go, you know what, I should, because you have viewers that watched these videos a year ago.
Yeah.
When we were talking about gold at 1,800. And now they're looking at gold at 2,300, saying, and you know, wait till we do one at the end of the year.
Yeah, it's going to be
And
sky
gold's
high,
at 2,700.
guys. So, thank you, sir.
Well,
like,
thank you.
subscribe, and we will see you real soon, guys.
Thanks for watching.